All right, what's up, guys? I don't know why this desk is so close to me. I tried to get Carson to move them. He refused. What? What? Jay, let's have everybody tune in. Calm down. Welcome back. Guys, if you're a little fatigued, if your 4-day week wasn't enough free time last week, then don't freak out. We got this week, and then there's 2 weeks until spring break.
Yeah.
So don't think of it as 3 weeks. Think of it as 2 plus the rest of this week. And then we got spring break. And y'all have a 3-day weekend coming up. So y'all don't come to school next Monday. Next Monday, y'all don't come to school. It's a staff day. I don't know. All right, guys, settle down. Settle down. So apparently we're learning about modern architecture that has classical influence today. Maybe I'm going to guinea pig you guys and play video at the end of class that I have not necessarily finished approving.
Why are we the guinea pigs? We supposed to be among us thing, and now we're just like another thing.
Y'all are my first class. There's just like no other way. All right. But we'll talk about some other things. We have like a bit of a mini Myth Monday. And then tomorrow we'll be translating a story about Narcissus, who we'll talk about in a second. The homework is a handout. You'll get that on Wednesday. And then there's Jeopardy on Thursday. Danny and anybody else still talking over to me, you are hyper rude. That's how I would describe you at this point. I will not be here on Friday. A substitute will give you the translation quiz on Friday. So nothing really will be different at all. So Caitlin, there's Dugan, Grace. Who else is still talking? It's annoying. All right, guys, welcome to Mars. Mars has come. As this says, Martius Laniant. So that's exciting. I don't mean the planet. I mean the god himself. March is named after Martius. This is when the Roman military season would begin. Miss Dugan, stop. Chill out. I'm here on Thursday. So just because I'm not here on Friday does not mean I will not stay with people on school during detention after school on Thursday. I'll gladly give out detentions to those. I'm not in the mood. All right. So he's the son of Zeus, and I never found out his mom. Did anybody know Mars' mom? It's like not important, isn't it? In some version. One second. Guys, I had a bit of a weekend. It was one of those weekends where it's like it's hard to work. You know, that's why spring break is so important. Who is Ares' mom? They're gonna be talking about Ares. I know that he's still listening to me. Okay. The Roman god Mars. His mom is. Okay. It doesn't say. It says Juno. Jupiter and Juno. Okay. So is he like the one child that actually is related to Juno and Zeus at the same time? That's fascinating. Cool. All right. I need this to go away again. Just bear with me, guys. Okay. So he's the father of Phobos and Deimos, and those are the names of his 2 moons. And when I say two, I'm talking about the planet at that point, but that comes from mythology. It's kind of convenient. They must have saw Mars, been inspired by its redness, and also saw it had 2 moons, and they're oh, that's perfect. Mars has 2 suns. That just seems like a good coincidence. But he's in the sky next to Venus, who is the woman he is often kind of having this affair with, behind the back of Venus's husband, who is Hephaestus / Vulcan. And this leads to a very embarrassing kind of scene in which, does anybody want to describe it for me? This is Hephaestus, aka Vulcan. He's like a blacksmith god. He always seems like an old man, even though he's born around the same time that people like Mars, Mercury, Apollo, and Diana are born. Jake?
Did he like catch them in the net or something to make everybody laugh at them?
Yeah, they're having a tryst, like a secret meetup. This is Mars and Aphrodite, the god of war and the god of love. And when they think they're meeting privately, Hephaestus lowers like a net onto them, and catches him, and all the gods like show up like they were expecting it to happen, and are just like laughing at them. They're like, haha, you got caught. So that's not good. Usually we see infidelity with the gods when we're talking about like Zeus or maybe Poseidon or not really Hades. But in this case, it's like it's within the gods. There's no humans involved or anything like that. Okay, so he's the god of like the violence and wrath of war, as opposed to Athena's being the goddess of like strategy. Also, guys, starting today, but mostly tomorrow, we're going to talk about Narcissus here. He is a hunter from Boeotia, which is just to the north of Athens and near about Thebes, if you've heard of Thebes. What do we know about Narcissus, Connor?
Isn't he that one guy who likes himself too much and that's what about
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to just boil it down, it's literally a dude who likes himself too much. He's very obsessed. Let's have Dugan move right here. So he's a little too into himself, and we get a clinical term for it that like within the kind of the world of psychology. So he's a hunter from Boeotia. He's very handsome apparently. He doesn't have any divine lineage or anything like that necessarily, but he happens to just be looking really good. What's his curse in the version you've read?
Well, you cannot see yourself see you.
Yeah. So again, with myth, there's always like different versions. I'm here. Why would I move you there next to all your friends still? No, right here. Okay, so his mom does apparently, in the version I looked at, consults this oracle Tiresias, who is a weird person unto themselves because it's a person who spends 7 years as a woman before turning back to them. Anyway, but Tiresias says everything's going to be fine with Narcissus if he never discovers himself, like if he never finds himself. And so what does that mean exactly? Maybe you can kind of put it together. But he has this like initial episode with an Oread, and that is a mountain nymph apparently. Nereids are ocean nymphs. Oreads are mountain nymphs. I don't know if there's a word dryad for forest. Okay, so dryad, Oread, and Nereid. It's kind of cool. But she falls in love with him, and Echo kind of has a whole thing. Sorry, I had to put clothes on her, but I thought that was a cool painting. But I mean that's just typical with Greek paintings, right? They're all made like 700 years ago, and that was just really normal. But Echo's whole thing is that she is a nymph who has like performed this party trick to kind of impress and cover for her nymph friends. When Juno, Zeus's wife, comes around like looking for Zeus, this nymph Echo will like make her voice make it sound like there's like a conversation happening to kind of distract Juno. It's hard for me to put this scene together, mostly because this is the first time I'm teaching it today, and I haven't gotten a better way to explain it to you guys. But anyway, like Echo previously has distracted Juno, trying to hide the fact that Zeus probably is flirting with some of these nymphs when Juno/Hera comes around looking for him. So Juno/Hera eventually finds out Echo's been doing this, so she curses her to not be able to speak herself, but only echo other things that people are saying around her. And then, of course, Echo falls in love with Narcissus one day when he's walking through the forest. She sees him, and she tries to talk to him, but this is post-curse from Juno. And so Echo will be like, or Narcissus will be like, oh, what was that? Who's there? And all she can say back is, who's there? Because she's like literally an Echo. And so he doesn't even really interact with her so much as like think that he's being teased or something. So poor Echo, she eventually kind of dissolves into nothing to where she's just a voice or a sound that's bounced back at the source. So that's like the explanation for an echo. But then Narcissus has this whole other like arc. He gets cursed by who is it? Oh, that was this there. Nemesis, this avenging spirit, finds out about what happened to Echo and is like mad on Echo's behalf, and so curses Narcissus to like catch a reflection of himself in a pool. Apparently that's all it takes. This is the avenging spirit right here, Nemesis, looking kind of like New Testament-y biblical style, but apparently that's Nemesis, interpreted by somebody. And so once he like sees himself once, he is totally transfixed. The idea is that he doesn't even really know for sure that that's him. Like he thinks it's another person who he just thinks like looks so I don't know, ideal that he can't take his eyes off of that reflection.
Wait, what?
If you think about it,
So,
what? Well, it's not.
That kind of weird because he's fallen in love.
I mean, it's like really weird. Yeah.
That's he's gay.
Well, but not even that. Not even no. Then like anyway, it's just like it's like a crazy Greek myth. Like who would fall in love with themselves? That wouldn't happen to anybody. But the idea is that he's so beautiful that it does happen to him. But anyway, what else was I gonna say? If you think about it, Miss Fisher, back in the day, 3,000 years ago, when this myth was probably supposed to be happening, Danny, people didn't have just like mirrors all the time, like hand mirrors and like, little pocket mirrors and stuff. You just like probably didn't have a mirror at all. So your reflection in water would be like the one time you'd actually see yourself, I suppose. It seems like people would have known, like, oh, dude, that's not like some like random person. That's you. Like, you know that, right? Like, he's like isolated when this happens, maybe. Anyway, he's stuck. He never leaves this pool until eventually he turns into a what new one?
Idiot.
Oh, what, Miss Dugan? What do you have to say?
I need to get a new one.
Okay, go get it. He turns into a narcissus flower. So we have flowers called narcissus flower, and the idea is that like they're the result of this tragic figure who looked at himself to death. So this is really bizarre, right? Like this wouldn't happen to anybody, but it's a Greek myth. So we derived the term Soraya, narcissistic personality disorder, which is a disorder in which a person has an inflated sense of self-importance. Narcissistic personality disorder is found more commonly in men, so there's like some coherence there to the myth. The cause is unknown, but likely involves a combination of genetic and environmental factors. Symptoms include an excessive need for admiration, disregard for others' feelings, and inability to handle criticism and a sense of entitlement. The disorder needs to be diagnosed by a professional, though. Just because you're like, oh, am I too focused on myself? Does that mean I'm a narcissist? No, probably not necessarily. So it's saying like you would need to get an actual psychologist to diagnose this. But yeah, we have malignant narcissism run rampant, especially in the political sphere and like celebrity culture, right? Because it's kind of part of that. That if you go into a field like being a politician or a celebrity, where the whole point is to be kind of admired by strangers, then yeah, your ego is probably going to get a little big and crazy, right? The word ego even comes from the Latin word for I. Yes.
You talk super fast in between it, but somehow I understood what you said.
Well,
That's because you talk fast.
Between what?
You spoke really fast when you were saying the symptoms of it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, they're kind of small. I just thought I would just read them. All right, guys. There's some questions lately. A lot of kids, apparently, I don't know who this is, and I'm not mad at you. It's fine. But apparently, a lot of times during essay, people will be like, "Oh, do you have work to do?" And they'll be like, "Oh, I have Latin homework," and then they'll say like, "Do your Latin homework, like study," and like kids will say like, "I don't know how." Like I got like 4 people during a meeting last Friday telling me like specifically about Latin. That kids were like coming like saying they didn't know how to do the Latin homework or study for Latin. So I guess that makes me look bad. I don't know. But we might as well address just like basics. I'm gonna basically give y'all a story about narcissists to work on right now, and I can walk around and see how you're like doing when you are working in a like solo capacity. But basically, you need at least your textbook or your dictionary. Because sometimes the homework is like a handout, right? Like it is this week. It's a handout. I'm not going to give it to you until you translate a certain amount of the narcissist story first. But as long as you have the dictionary or a textbook, then you can look up words. I know we've talked about looking at words before. I'm thinking of maybe later this week we'll talk about when it's hard to look up certain words, like if they're in a certain form that makes it almost impossible to look them up. So that happens, but if you are working during essay, which you should be, you can always come ask me and be like, hey, like I looked up this word, I couldn't find it under like the way it looks in the sentence, I can't find it like that in the dictionary. I can help you with that. Wiktionary is obviously the remedy for that, but that's not something you can use until you get home. I think Wiktionary is great, but I also think like because of this weird thing, Caitlin, how many times, Caitlin, have you tried to look up a word in the homework and like it's not showing up? At least not showing up the way.
At least I understand. When I ask someone smart what it means.
Yeah, okay, so you can ask your friends for help sometimes, but like until you're getting, like I'll show y'all some examples of this soon, but until you're getting the hang of looking up a word, even if it's in a weird form, then something like Wiktionary is actually really great because it's like, oh, Romi, that's the dative, genitive, or nominative plural of Roma, Romi, Rome. And like Wiktionary tells you that. But I know during essay you don't have Wiktionary. So that's when you either come talk to me or look at the recent vocab for the chapter. That's a big thing that I would make sure you're always doing. Sometimes I have people come to me like, what's this word on the homework? And I'm like, oh, you literally need to flip one page back to look at the brand new words this chapter. That'll help you. So every chapter we get like the 10 to 20 new words. Make sure you're looking at those when you're doing your homework as well, okay? And then know if you're in a vocab quiz week or a grammar quiz week. This week is a ladder. If it's vocab quiz week, make sure you know what page the vocab is on. And I don't want to talk down to you guys, but like, do we know how to make flashcards? I'm a little low on flashcards right now. And this might sound silly, like, of course I know. But some people might not. So you just make sure you put the Latin word on one side and the English meaning on the other, okay? But you can add all sorts of information, including parts of speech. If it's a noun, declension. If it's a verb, conjugation, etc., etc. And then if it's a grammar quiz week, the best you can do is probably still study the vocabulary. But if you want to go above and beyond, you look at additional Latin sentences in the chapter for that week or whatever, and like try your hand at those sentences. I know you guys, a lot of y'all are probably, without realizing it, waiting for something to click with Latin where it becomes a little easier. That does happen eventually, but it happens more quickly based on how much time you're putting in. Connor?
Does Latin have an alphabet?
What?
Does Latin have an alphabet?
I mean, it does, right? It's just ours minus 3 or 4 letters.
Really?
Yeah, we use the same letters, right?
Oh,
We use Roman letters.
What letters don't they have?
What letters?
J.
They don't have J, they have I instead. Yeah, they don't have W. They use a V basically for W.
U.
And, well,
They use a V for U.
yeah, they use a V, what looks like a V for the U, but it kind of functions like a U. I'll look into that because I was thinking the other day, I was like, how did we decide the order of our English alphabet, which is based on Roman letters, but it must have already been in that order, right? But like, why is it A, B, C, D, and not A, X, G, Y? Like, how did that get decided? I need to look into it. But yes, Romans had the same alphabet as us, just a little smaller. So we're not going to do that vocab quiz, but don't make me regret it. Devin, what does divitai, divitare mean? So I decided we're not going to do the vocab quiz, and to compensate, I'll just go through like 6 or 7 of the words every day this week until like we're sick of what they mean. Danny? No, this is not. No, it's not a verb at all, Natalie. Riches or wealth. Yeah. So this one is, for whatever reason, I've taught with this textbook for a few years. Kids get to this word and they have trouble remembering it. And I don't blame you. It looks like other English words like divine or something that doesn't have to do with riches. There is no related English words. The fancy way of saying that is there's no English cognates. So it makes it hard to remember this. But yeah, divitai, divitarum, it's riches. It is first declension, which I was going to ask, but I skipped ahead. And it's plural only, okay? See how it's like ending in A-E in the nominative? Some words are just like they're only ever plural. If you think about wealth, though, that is something that's always like a plurality. You can't have a single wealth or a single rich. It's always something that's like, it's an abundance, so it has to be plural. Does that make kind of sense? Make sense, kind of? Quisque, John, Connor, Soraya, David, Carson.
What?
Not what. It does look, so it looks like quid. Quid by itself is what? Not when. Natalie?
Whenever.
Yeah, each one or each thing. This one's really hard. Again, no related words. It doesn't show up too much, but it might be the subject of a sentence of anything. So it can be each one as in a person or a thing. Kaden? Each one, each thing, each one. Sometimes you got to say it twice, you know? Suey.
That would be you, yourself,
Nothing?
itself.
So Carson, thinking of himself, itself, but not yourself, not myself, not yourself. Because, guys, this is our intensive pronoun. It is third person, though, okay? So depending on the gender, the number of the subject, it's going to be himself, herself, itself, themselves, depending on what subject is being reflected. So in a sentence like Cleopatra, Deia cogitat, that would actually be her thinking about herself. So this would be herself. This, though, is just her. Yeah, that is our personal pronoun example, Miss Fisher, where she's just thinking about another girl, somebody who isn't Cleopatra. We would use is, it. These pronouns are probably still being used to from chapter 11. They are kind of gnarly. But now, if we want to say that Cleopatra is thinking about herself, we would use sui, sui, say. In this case, the ablative. There are 4 cases to choose from. Sui is the genitive one. There are no reflexive nominative pronouns. That's not a thing. That would be like herself is the subject of the sentence. Herself. Like that wouldn't happen. So there's that. These sui, sui, say pronouns are third person only. Hello.
I'm sorry. This is after accidentally shredded the one paper.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
Sure. Maybe it was in my mailbox this morning.
It wasn't. I'm sorry. We forgot on Friday to put these new ones in your mailbox.
Oh, okay.
Do you want me to come back and grab it?
I can probably do it real quick.
Okay, cool.
Hands up for lunch again.
Sorry, guys.
Wasn't it 15? Do we remember? I guess I need to get everyone again.
You didn't even say it.
I just said our last names.
Vado. Okay, I'm up to Ware Wines Row. Y'all can put your hands down over here.
You can still put your hands down.
Lee Robinson, Hayden Burt, and Van Treese. All right. Is that everyone? Okay. 1, 2, 3.
It is nice.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry about that.
All right. So if sui sui say is this reflexive person for pronoun for third person things, what is sua sua suum? How is that different?
It looks like you.
They shredded it? That's so over the top. That's so weird.
Yeah, I would accidentally shred her.
No.
Well, they don't.
Or like,
I'm using shredder.
They always do something weird with their lines. Like you have to put it in there and then.
okay, but they could have transcribed it. I made it clear. I was like, I'm using the Monday from like last week. I'm just using it again. You could have transcribed it. That's weird. Okay. But, well, you could tell it wasn't Miss Ellis. It was like some other. She was like trying to like say like Miss Gasper was being weird. I was like, good to know, because that's really weird. Anyways, everyone in the office is great. I'm not trying to throw shade. It sounds like that. So what do we call this, guys? There's a key word I'm looking for that starts with a P to describe sua sua suum. It's just a third person version of a blank guessive adjective. Yep.
Is it his own? Their own?
Yeah. Good. It's possessive was the word I was looking for, but Caitlin was just kind of like translating it or giving us some like options. Again, it's going to depend, but it's going to be his, her, its, or their own, depending on the subject, right? It's going to be his own if like Cicero is the subject of the sentence. Her own if it's Cleopatra. So Cleopatra suum librum amat would be what? Anyone? Cleopatra, Connor? What is lib? Her own book. That is close to the word for freedom. That would be like suum libertatum.
I can't tell the difference between that.
So don't freak out about sui sui suum. Just know that these are possessive, whereas sui sui say is not possessive. It's just reflexive. And so we add self as like a suffix to the end of these pronouns. Whereas here we're using own to just like insist that this is in fact the subject's own blah blah blah, whatever it is. Whereas things like meus and tuus are still they can be personally reflexive, or I'm sorry, possessive or reflexively possessive. Anti, what does anti mean? Hayden, Nathan, or Jake, or Kylie. She shredded it. That's gonna haunt me.
Why shred notes?
It's gonna take me about 3 hours to forget that. What, Auntie? Anyone? What is Auntie anyone?
That would be before.
Yes, Natalie and Carson know. So far, from what I can tell, only Natalie and Carson would pass the vocab quiz. So maybe we should have it this Friday. I can combine it with the translation quiz if you guys don't do a little better in the next few mornings, when we start the class with this, which we will. So ante is before, okay? Antebellum is like a plantation house made before the Civil War, where a lot of bad things happened. Post-war means after the war, after World War II specifically. when we use that loosely in English. The revolution, they take accusative objects. The energy of people like Laura and Miss Fisher is completely infuriating and strange. You might get by for a little while talking over your classes and just never tuning in and like paying attention, but eventually you will fall behind, fail the grade, and then all your friends will move on ahead of you, and you'll just kind of be like, well, at least I passed notes and like talked over my teachers every day of my life. Olin is once, nom is for. These are just conjunctions. Don't let them throw you off too much because they're not that bad. What is alo alera, anyone? To
That that looks like other, but I don't want to say
nope. Okay, we need to do this quiz. Natalie? To nourish, think of aloe vera. I believe it's actually related, like cognitively, or etymologically. Deligo, deligera, anyone?
love.
To love, just think of amo mare. Iongo, younger is to,
Join.
and then Sostari is to
Sign?
There.
stand. Wait, why does it say to join? That's weird.
Join.
It's to join as well. We have two joins. All right. I don't know why that happened. Other than that, I was making this right up until the bell. Guys, why do teachers have to work on Sundays? It's too hard. What if I want to play video games all day on a Sunday? Okay, personal pronouns being reflexive. All right, so Kaiser me supera would be what? Caesar.
Kaiser overcomes me.
Yeah, overcomes me. But how we translate me in a sentence like ego me supero?
I overcome myself.
Yeah, I overcome myself, right? So both Dons are translating may, but in the second example, we have to translate it reflexively because the subject is I, it's ego, which probably wouldn't even be there. We would just know that the subject is I because our verb is first person singular. What person and number is our verb, Jake or Nathan? First, second, or third person? Yeah, it's first. That's how we, like, even if ego isn't there, which does mean I, we would know that this is I, verb, myself. We don't want to say I conquer me. We'd say we make me reflexive by just making it myself. So I don't need to dwell on this much because it's literally something you can, like, know the difference by saying it out loud. You can just, like, say this out loud sometimes, like, then you hear if you need that self suffix to be added. So, like, here, Caesar overcomes, what is K, anyone? You, good, Caitlin. Whereas, if we change the verb to second person to te superos, you overcome yourself, right? Again, we're translating te, but it's either going to be you or yourself, depending on what the subject is. So that's a really easy part of this chapter. I need to have something now to review if some are intensives, himself, herself, itself, themselves, etc. But you'll get plenty of that in the Narcissus reading, which you'll translate right now. You have to get through the first 3 sentences at least before I give you your homework. I'll give you your homework once you translate at least 3 of these. Because we're going to do this in class tomorrow, but I want you guys to be a little more invested than you normally are in our stories by having at least, like, looked at the first part of You'll just never get your homework.
You have a question?
I don't know. Cool, I guess. It's a handout.
What do you know?
Laura is make me realize, like, yeah, it's on Teams, but it doesn't, like, foil my plan. I just want to work on this for 10 minutes before I give you your homework.
I can't do that much in 10 minutes. I'm not that smart. I don't even know.
I never give up time to work on Latin during class. So where you can use me as a resource. I'll be walking around to make sure you are productive, and I'll be awarding people with their homework once they get to that point.
What if you get it wrong though? What if you don't want homework?
You just have to try. I don't care if you don't want homework. Like, what a basic question. I know you don't. All right, e-learners, I'm going to upload the Narcissus reading they're looking at right now to Teams right now. Goodbye.
What is errat?